Hello, today I want to read to you another true story that might be inspiring to you and that hopefully touches your heart. As the most special day of the year besides my birthday came closer, something happened that would change the way I look at Christmas for the rest of my life. I grew up in a family of 7 children. We learned pretty early not to wait around for seconds at the dinner table. They used to tell us, eat everything on your plate. There are kids in other countries who don't have as much as you. To which I'd fire back, fine with me, they can have all my liver and onions. We also knew that when it came to Christmas presents, an only child was going to do a whole lot better than we were. We could never expect to get anything on our list, but each Christmas we submitted one to our parents anyway, hoping for something big that year. The Christmas I'm going to tell you about happened over 50 years ago. That special day was less than 3 weeks away and our list were in. I had requested a record truck, rodeo set, and a cowboy outfit completed with 2 guns on a leather belt, along with a few other things I never expected to actually get. Because there were so many children in our family, my parents began saving Christmas money months in advance. Much of my father's income came from the freelance writing and a few books he had written. A special missionary speaker came to our church. He owned a big ship that he used to reach out to Eskimo villages. Many of these people have nothing, especially the children, he reported. It was not unusual because of my father's writing his work in film production for many people to visit our home. This included a few who were famous other authors and pastors and lots of missionaries. My parents had dreamed of going into the mission field themselves, but their life took a different direction. They invited the Eskimo missionaries to our house for dinner. This man had all kids of wild stories about his ship, storms he had weathered, and the people he wanted to reach. He laughed as he and our dad told jokes like the one cannibal inviting the other cannibal to his hut saying, "I'd like to have you for dinner." The needs are great, he reminded us later, especially the children. Many of them will have nothing for Christmas. I looked at the large family sitting around the table and thought our needs were pretty great too. Besides Christmas was coming, I'd already handed my list, and now dreaming about what I'd get was all I could think about. When it came to Christmas and presents, it's fair to say that I was more or less just selfish and self-centered as an ex-boy under 10 of age. The missionary went on his way and life returned to normal for the next few days, or so I thought. Then something more dramatic than any of my dad filmed happened, and I never forget it. Dad called out in his loudest voice, family meeting now." Anyone growing up in our house knew that family meeting always meant that something big, really big, was about to happen to us. We'd have a family meeting when it was time to buy a new car, our first TV, when Dad received a big royalty check, or we were going on vacation. When we heard family meeting, we nearly broke our necks running to the living room. "Get out of the way," my older brother shouted as he raced past me in the hallway. When I slid into my place on the floor, I wondered if it was this year I would get anything on my list. But I noticed my parents had serious looks on their faces. Sometimes in family meetings, we had to discuss a difficult subject. Those times were called family council. "Mom, I have something important to discuss with you," my father began, "and your vote will help us to decide what to do." I swallowed hard. Not sure I liked the sound of that. "You remember when the captain was here," he continued, "and He told us about the needs in the villages. I looked around to my brothers and sisters. Most were staring down at the floor. Well, my mother added, we were wondering if our family shouldn't do something to help. Like what? My older sister asked. My father smiled. We thought about taking the money we'd set aside for Christmas presents and sending that to him for the children he told us about. My voice barely squeaked. All of it? They both nodded. I felt like my throat had just squeezed shut and I felt sickness all over my stomach. But this is Christmas. I thought, our Christmas. So what do you think? My father asked. I was sure they didn't want to know what I was really thinking and what was really going through my head at that moment. But we began to talk about it as a family, and the missionaries' words came back to my mind. The needs are great, especially the children. Many of them will have nothing for Christmas. It didn't help that we lived in Michigan and where a white Christmas was never in doubt. The smell of our Christmas tree already sitting over in the corner of the room where we would cast our votes had no present under it yet. No Christmas presents. Then one by one, hands began going up to vote on mailing our Happy Christmas away to some Eskimo kids we'd never met. I could hardly believe it as I watched my own hand going up too. The vote was unanimous. That money was Christmas as far as the Andersons' children were concerned. Then something happened on Christmas Eve day that we still talk about today. Again, we heard family meeting. That had never happened a second time so soon. When we raced to the living room this time, our parents had broad smiles in their faces. We have the most wonderful news, my dad said. He held up an envelope. I received a check in the mail today for a story I had long forgotten. My mother's eyes glistened. Her voice cracked with emotions as she said, and it's exactly the same amount as we sent for the Eskimo children. Well, you have never seen such an excited bunch of people in your life. My parents rushed out to do their Christmas shopping, and they were gone for a long time. Our family had Christmas that year after all, and of course it would have been Christmas anyway, but the presents just made it so much better. Around the tree that night, our parents told us because they waited to shop until the night before Christmas, everything was 50% off and more. We got twice as much that year as any Christmas before or ever since. So remember, giving means you automatically receive so much back. Just keep that in mind as you maybe see people that need help around this Christmas and Advent time and around actually any time of the year. But of course, giving around Advent and Christmas time is for a lot of people especially hard because everyone is short of money and everybody gets bills on Christmas. Isn't that crazy? Everybody wants to have their bill being paid right before Christmas. So help if you can.